We're going to examine how teachers can use artificial intelligence for teaching and learning and for administrative tasks, and also how they can support students to use AI in a positive way. Now, AI can perform complex tasks that previously humans could only complete. When we think about AI, we need to think away from a rules-based problem solving to it being based on huge quantities of big data. So when we think of traditional IT and traditional computation, it allows us to solve repetitive tasks, relatively simple tasks. And if we think about how this might work, if you just sort of compare a autonomous vehicle, so a driverless car, which has to operate in an uncontrolled environment, you can have all sorts of complex scenarios. For example, a pedestrian stepping out in front of the vehicle and needs to be able to respond to that. So that's a really complex scenario. But traditional computing might be able to solve problems where you've got robots that are performing routine, repetitive tasks in a completely controlled environment on an assembly line. So that's really more sort of traditional application of IT solutions, whereas AI is a very new idea, but also dealing with much more and solving much more complex problems and dealing with much more complex environments. So, in some ways, we're already using artificial intelligence and have been doing so for some time. If we consider a typical morning routine of a typical teacher, first thing they might want to do is to check their phone, and they can do that or they can unlock their phone by using a facial recognition AI to do that. So, that would be the first use of AI of the day. Then they might want to check the weather forecast. So increasingly, weather forecasts are being produced by machine learning or artificial intelligence algorithms. Then you might want to use the voice assistant. So voice assistant, converting your voice into a way that the computer can interpret. And then recommending, which is also based on previous things that you've listened to in terms of music. So if you're looking at a recommendation system for a music playlist, it is based on what you previously listened to, but also what other people who have sort of similar music profiles or listening profiles to you have used as well. So it's able to take all the data and to recommend to you something which will be suitable, hopefully. Once you arrive at work, the barrier to the car park opens automatically and lets you in because it recognizes your number plate. So again, another application of this is called automatic number plate recognition technology, where the computer can actually read the number plate on a vehicle. And then when you get to your car parking space, the car can park itself. Now, once we get to the classroom, you log into your computer, and you only have 20 emails this morning, which is great. Basically, at this point, you already filtered out all the spam, and to be able to do that, the spam emails, or to do that, it's needed to use AI technology, to be able to determine which emails were spam and which were legitimate emails. Now, things have changed more recently since the advent of ChatGPT and chatbots in general. In November 2022, there has been a shift in public awareness of the potential of artificial intelligence, really in all areas of our society and employment, and education is no exception to that. And these sort of generative AI tools, so that is tools that can produce artifacts. So, for example, we can get AI to generate text for us, we can get it to generate code for us, we can get it to generate art and music and videos. This is being seen as certainly really important for education because we can potentially use these tools to help us. So to begin with then, how can students use AI? Well, it can help them with independent learning, personalized learning, giving feedback. They can use it for research. They can use it for formative assessment. They can use it for setting questions. They can use it fundamentally as a tutor. Now, if we consider the SAMR framework for technology integration, we can apply this to how artificial intelligence, in the context of artificial intelligence, we can look at how substitution example might be carrying out research. So you're not doing anything necessarily different to what students are doing before, but it could be that they're doing it using a different tool. Augmentation, so that is they can achieve instant feedback on a piece of work, which is really beneficial considering it can take a while for teachers to mark a class of books and to give feedback, which may take a week or so. And we can think of it in a modification context, that is to say, we can use AI as a tutor, and redefinition where we're using it in a way that we can't do it in any other way, right? So that is to say, for example, having a conversation with a simulation of a historical figure or a literary character, really redefining what it is that we can do with artificial intelligence. Now, when we move over to teachers, we recognize that we have already a lot of tasks to do, a huge number. And if anything, this list is not going to shrink. If anything, it's going to get more and more. So what we need to do is figure out how can we be more efficient in working and operating some of these tasks. Some of the administrative, some of the teaching and learning, but nevertheless, we can look to generative AI to help us achieve this. And this is certainly what the Department for Education is looking at. They work with a work reduction task force looking at how AI can really help reduce and make some of those tasks more efficient. So recent research has shown the teachers using ChatGPT or chatbot have experienced significantly lower lesson and resource preparation time than a comparison group of teachers who were asked not to use generative AI to plan their lessons. And this equates to about a reduction in 31% of the time taken. So this is a report from the Education Endowment Foundation. So that's a significant finding, especially if that's just for planning and preparing resources. And if that's applied across the board to other administrative and all sorts of other tasks, then we can be looking to have a big impact potentially. So using AI to improve work-life balance, we can use it in all sorts of ways. We can use it for planning our lessons. We can use it in administration, so writing emails, maybe report writing. We can use it for marking and assessment, for generating new resources. And because students have more independent use of it as well, that can help potentially reduce workload. One of the key components of generative AI is prompt craft. So that is putting the right prompt in to get the output that you want. It requires a high degree of literacy. So again, surrounding this is really going to be a point of education for students, really helping with their literacy, making sure they get the right prompt, they get writing the right pithy prompt and short prompt, but nevertheless getting the information that they want from the generative artificial intelligence tool, the chatbot. And the other thing that's going to be really important to consider the ethics around it. Clearly, if children are going to be using, you've got 13-year-olds using it, we need to have really strong guardrails with the use of AI, and hopefully these are all in place to prevent students coming across really appalling material potentially. So those guardrails need to be sure that they are rock solid. Data protection is a big issue around this. Every time we use AI, potentially using the data we're putting in to train the model even further. So careful how we use student data, parent data, other teacher data, to really be careful how that's used. We know that plagiarism is not necessarily a new issue in our environment, but it is making it become complex for two reasons. The first being that it's hard to detect when a piece of work's been generated by AI, to actually detect whether it's been plagiarized. Second thing is there is an increasing fuzziness around what we mean by plagiarism. Is it okay, for example, for students to use AI to help them with their grammar and spelling? At what point do we draw the line? Is it okay for them to use it for their research? At what point do we sort of draw the line and say, actually, beyond this is plagiarism, up to this point it isn't? It's going to be difficult to sort of say where that line is. So we just need to be really, really understanding and also need to be really clear eventually when we do decide what that sort of criteria is for plagiarism. We need to be mindful that there's certainly is a lot of not a lot of clarity in that. There's a lot of bias associated with AI that is based on really fallible data that goes in, so it produces biases that come out as well. And then this idea of hallucination, where it not only makes stuff up, it makes it up confidently, and also it provides incorrect references to things that just don't exist. So this course then is going to focus on a few areas, and we're going to look at prompt craft, making sure we're able to generate really good prompts as teachers. And by doing so, then we'll be able to support our students to write good prompts. We're going to look at a whole range of AI applications that are useful in education, especially with regards to how we can use them to save time. And we're also going to look at how we can support students to use AI for their learning. And we're also going to explore some of the ethics around AI as well.